Justin, UFC Noche took place this past weekend. Now they're calling it Noche UFC. I guess it shows you how bad of a job they did marketing the event. But Dana was calling it the combat sports event of the century. You know, he said that about 8 different times this year. But how did you think the event went? You know, just the spectacle of it all, the fights as well, but just the event as a whole. What did you think of it?
Yeah, dude, I thought it was definitely a successful event by the UFC and their production team. Dude, when it first came on, I mean, I was watching. I had meetings later that night, but I was watching from the first prelim, and I'm like, me and a couple of the buddies were watching it, and I'm like, dude, I mean, it didn't look all too impressive. And then they opened up like the stuff, and it got even better and better. And especially like the storyline as the night went on, each fight and everything, I thought it was really cool. And I thought it was a success. I mean, the fights were great up until the co-main and main, I would say. Those were snooze fest. But I thought it was a great night. I thought it looked really cool, dude. The production looked really cool. And yeah, I thought it was a successful night. What about you?
Yeah, I thought the production was awesome, man. I was so curious to see what they were going to do, how they were going to be able to pull it off, because we really haven't seen anything like that. You know, I'm sure you could point to some old boxing matches or something like that where they tried to pull off something similar. But the Sphere is such a unique thing. Like seeing all these concert clips from there, it just looks like it's almost like sensory overload. So I was really curious to see how they were going to pull off fights. And I think they delivered, like you said, on the prelims. I think they were saving a lot of like the, more high level production stuff for the pay-per-view card. I was just kind of sitting there in awe. And I'm seeing a lot of people say it didn't really live up to the hype from the production standpoint. I don't really know what you were expecting if you didn't think that was like the coolest thing ever. So I thought it was so cool. I thought the fights definitely delivered. As you mentioned, sucks that the co-main and the main did not really go so well. I guess let's just get into the most important thing. Sugar Show did not really show. What an unbelievable word salad I just made there. But what did you think of his performance? What did you think of the main event? Yeah, what do you think as Merab Dvalishvili as the bantamweight champion?
So honestly, the fight played out really how I expected it to. To be completely honest with you, and again, like this is no disrespect to Sean O'Malley. I think he's one of the more entertaining fighters in the sport today. Had a great run, and I mean he's still young. He's got
great run.
All right, I'm just giving him his respect. He didn't have great. He lost to Peter Yan, and then he fought Aljo. And when he fought Aljo, that was supposed to happen to him, except Aljo would have finished him on the ground. But Sean landed the shot. All his fans, started to buy the hype, because if you look at his career, to be honest, like we all know he lost. Everyone knows he lost to Peter Yan. The UFC gave him that win to move him up, and look, it ended up working out. They made him a champion. He headlined three pay-per-views for him. Like they made this guy a star, but he met his match in Merab, and people are like, "Oh, well, Sean looked nervous." Sean, bro, I meant to tell you this. If you saw, Sean looks nervous before all his fights, so that's like another thing people are overdoing. He looks nervous for all his fights, but if you looked at Tim Welsh when Sean was getting the Vaseline put on his face before, I could have told you that the fight was over from that point on. He looked so nervous. It was like bad. Like it was like,
really?
I'm like, oh, bro, if you go back and watch it, if you can, look at him while Sean's getting the Vaseline put on his face. It'll tell you everything you need to know. And it was like, all right, it told me what I already knew. His coach knows. And this is stylistically a terrible matchup for him. He knows what's going to happen. He's going to get taken down and ragdolled. And, I mean, that's what we saw. And, dude, it even got to the point where I can't believe in the 5th round he's like, yo, we're almost done here. Like, literally tell Sean we're almost done. Like, dude, like.
That had to be taken a little bit, not to say out of context, but like, I mean, he probably just didn't choose his words so great. Like, you only have a minute in there with your fighter, a little less than that in terms of time that you can actually really talk to him. So like, I have to think he didn't mean to word whatever he was trying to say that way. Cause that sounded terrible after probably was 4-0 at the time in most people's scorebooks. And then instead of saying like, you need to sell out, if in 5 minutes you're no longer the champ, if you don't knock this guy out, and he just comes out in a very monotone voice and he's like, 5 minutes and it's over. Like,
Dude.
we can go fucking party with the Nelk boys, dude, and drink all our happy dads and post videos with a bunch of chicks and then post a skit backstage of you punching the ground. I don't really know what to make of this guy, man. And everyone's like, he's taking full accountability. He's not making excuses. Like, okay, what excuse could you possibly make? I know every UFC fighter now has staph infection, or I just wasn't there that night, dude. It's like, okay, well, nobody would believe you anyway. So yeah, he came in and he said, yeah, I felt great camp, felt good going in there. He was just better than me tonight. It's like, yeah, I get that you're like, that's taking responsibility, but like, anyone with a functioning pair of eyes saw that tonight. So like, great that he took full accountability, but yeah, he lost to the better guy. It's like, yeah, we know. Thank you.
Bro,
that's exactly what happened.
What's crazy to me is if you don't think that the fix was in on that night, it's crazy. Herb Dean was telling Merab to work on the feet when he's moving around. Like, what are we doing, bro? As soon as he gets a takedown, like, let's work. And then 2 judges have it 48-47. What are we talking about, bro?
So, but here, the 5th round, O'Malley won.
Okay.
Have you seen a score? I don't know how I didn't look this up before we got on. I don't know what round judges gave to O'Malley, but like, you have to think he was a couple more. If he won 2 rounds, or again, if he won one of the first 4 rounds, he must have been pretty close to winning the fight. Like, it doesn't seem like it would have taken much on a scorecard for him to win. Here's what I want to ask you. We see this a lot in the UFC. We see this with pretty much every topic in the world today, with a bunch of morons on each side taking, the extreme stances on whatever we're talking about. You see a lot of people, the O'Malley fan base, or, just some UFC fans in general, shitting on Merab, talking about how boring his style is. He's a bum, he's a crotch sniffer, yada, yada, yada. You see a lot of other people on the opposite side, the classic stance. Anytime a wrestler wins, if you want to watch stand-up, go watch kickboxing, go watch ONE FC, go watch one of these things. MMA is mixed martial arts, and they're mixing the martial arts. Where do you stand on this? Because I got a pretty definitive take on this. And I really love to see these morons go back and forth online when a fight like this takes place. What's your stance on a guy like Merab?
Dude, it's exactly why I love the sport of MMA and why I've watched it for so long. Yes, the striker and the elite strikers are very entertaining to watch. But, bro, it is mixed martial arts for a reason. And that's why these matchups are always intriguing, is who's going to be able to imply their game plan and their techniques, whether it be, wrestling, like who can implement their style, whether it's wrestling versus striking, Muay Thai versus karate, like, you know what I mean? It's just, that's what mixed martial arts is. And we can't get mad at it, the fact that, if I'm going into a fight with Conor Hebler and I'm he's not good. He's not a good wrestler, and I'm one of the best wrestlers in the world. I'm going to therefore take him down and do what I have to do to win the fight. People, it's crazy to me how Khabib became such a superstar in the fact that, like, that was his. Everyone knew what Khabib was doing. Khabib was taking you down and mauling you, and it's crazy that the UFC kind of like pushed a guy like that and got behind he's gonna absolutely maul you, and that's how they built it up. But it's like, then Dana has some of these guys who, yeah, Khabib was finishing some people, but at one point in Khabib's run, like before he got the belt, Khabib was not finishing guys. And Dana will sometimes discredit some of these guys in post-fight interviews that go out and dominate with wrestling. And it's like, bro, it's MMA. It's not kickboxing. It's not boxing. Like, it's what the sport is about. Like, what's your take on it?
I agree with everything you said. I just hate the people who are like I just said, and I think Aljo tweeted this maybe exactly, and he certainly falls into this category. Everyone who says what you're saying, like, don't watch MMA, go watch kickboxing. It's like, I'm going to continue to watch MMA and just fucking complain about it every time it happens. There is a major difference between guys who take you down and they look for finishes. I know, like you said, Khabib in his championship run was finishing everyone, but in the buildup, there were a lot of kind of more boring decisions, even the way he fraudulently got the belt versus Iaquinta, right? He wasn't finishing these fights, but there is a major difference to me with a wrestler who's going to take you down and throw up submissions and use ground and pound and try to finish fights. That's what I look for, like whether it's standing or on the ground, like looking to finish the fight. That's what I want to see. So whether it's a submission, ground and pound, or yes, more regularly with, your stand up, with your kickboxing. Merab doesn't seem to be looking to finish the fight at all. The sequence everyone's talking about was at the end of the first or the second when he kissed him, when everyone's like, oh, he embarrassed O'Malley. First of all, it's like, dude, he had him in like, he had him in like kind of a guillotine, but he was like looking up at the clock. Like he wasn't trying to finish it. He was just trying to hold him there. That was what he did to Aldo. That's kind of what he did to Jan too. He is an unbelievable fighter. He's the best bantamweight in the world right now. He just won the belt for a reason in kind of dominant fashion. But like, dude, I just can't stand fighters like that. Like I want a grappler who's looking to finish you. Even if he doesn't finish you, like he's throwing up submissions. He's taking your back.
Merab did attempt a couple submissions. Like
a couple, they fought for 25 minutes. Like you would hope so. Like he just doesn't seem. That image is playing in my head over and over of like, did he look up? It looked like he was looking at the time to like, I'm just going to hold him here and wait out the round. Like, I don't know. I can't stand that. And I understand, trust me, like you can try to explain the rules to me. I understand that he's winning the fight. I understand that like, hey, kickboxing guy, go learn some grappling. I got it, dude. But like, I don't know. I don't like that. Like, I don't like a guy who's taking you down and not looking to finish the fight. Bilal's the best example, dude. Like, that's why everyone hates him. And you can't blame. I just saw a stat of Bilal and Merab, their combined finish rates. They both have, with all their UFC experience, they both only have a couple finishes. That's more what it is, dude. If you're choking guys out, it doesn't matter. But if you're just taking guys down, or even, right, Khabib, you picture him smashing McGregor's face in. I know he didn't do that in every fight, but like, there's a difference. People used to call the Dagestanis Khabib. They called them crotch sniffers. That's not what a crotch sniffer is. If you're finishing the fight, if you look at the guy's face after and it looks like he was in a fist fight, it's different. But like for these guys who are just trying to control you, that's why control time barely gets scored now. That's why the scoring criteria is working towards finishing the fight. So if you throw up a submission and you almost get it, it's supposed to be scored the same way as like, if you're jabbing a guy's face off. So there's my rant on that. I'm not going to waste my breath and talk about fucking Valentina and Grasso. Did Grasso Alexa Dan Ige Grasso, did she know she was fighting, or like did she just get called up the day of off the couch? What was she doing in there?
We're not going to give Miss Shevchenko and Miss Grasso the platform of this podcast. Yeah, that was the most boring fight I think I've ever seen. I'm not kidding.
It's always tough as the sport continues to grow, right? You'll have, as you definitely see playing in the league, I'm sure all your buddies are sports guys, but maybe they're not UFC gurus. They don't watch every card. It's always tough with, when you're watching with your friends who are not like, watch every card diehards, when they're like, dude, what is this? I'm like, brother, I wish I knew. Like, I want to turn it off as well. My girlfriend was like falling asleep on the couch. It was brutal, dude. So let's move right on, putting my foot down. Diego Lopes is a star. Tell me he's not.
A star? The guy. What's your reasoning behind calling him a star? Like,
I made a video about this last night. Hopefully I drop it by tonight. There are three major things that can make you a superstar in the UFC. Again, I've done very extensive research on this. Your fighting style, well, number one, obviously most important. You come out there and you put guys to sleep. It doesn't matter if you know a lick of English. People are going to love you. Your activity, when you turn around and fight all the time, again, people love that. It doesn't matter your personality. The third thing would be all the extracurriculars, your personality, who you are outside of the cage. Actually, we'll just call it your aura. The best example, the best two examples of this, Charles Oliveira and Alex Pereira. Again, neither, they don't have a word of English between them. I was going to say other than Shama, but I don't even know if that's a word. It's certainly not English. Not saying this in a negative way. I'm more saying it as a positive. It's so cool to see these guys get to their level of star power without knowing English when this sport is most popular in the USA. That shows you, for a while, it was like, what's this Conor McGregor platform or blueprint rather? You know, we got to be good on the mic. You got to sell fights, trash talk. Chael Sonnen maybe did it best before him. You got to almost be playing a character. That's what Colby Covington tried. Those two guys have shown that doesn't matter. If you go out there and you starch people, if you turn around and fight every couple months, if you just don't give a fuck, people are going to love you. Diego Lopes fits that criteria. And again, with aura, the guy's got some aura. Just look at him on fight week. He came into the press conference with like this cowboy hat. He's got the mullet. He's got one of the stranger hairdos of all time. If you saw that cat on the street, you would not think that he would be the type of fighter he is. Do you not think he has star potential? I'm not saying he's this massive like sell right now, but that guy's got potential to be a star in a couple years, man. What do you think of Diego Lopes?
no, I 100% agree with you in the fact that I think he has the potential to be a star in the sport. Like you said, the guys you named, I just feel he still needs more wins against like
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Legitimate opponents. And I just don't know if that's going to come because although he had a great performance the other night, I still do believe that he's technically flawed. And I think we're going to see that if he fights somebody in the elite category. I think we can all agree that Brian Ortega that we saw the other night is not the Brian Ortega of old. I think it's a washed. Again, and I'm not discrediting Diego Lopez's win.
What makes you say that?
He went out and dominated. I think you said what makes me say that?
What makes you say it was a washed Ortega?
Okay, so we saw the guy pull out on 24 hours notice in his last fight. He's spoken multiple times about mental health and what he's been going through in life for the last couple of years. That's
the rebirth. Is this what
That's why he fights so rarely. And then middle of the week, I see a picture when the fighters go and do their. And again, I know Ortega doesn't have the craziest physique, but it was very evident that he was out of shape for this fight, and I think it showed the other night. He got absolutely dominated, and right out of the gate, first exchange, Lopez, Lopez just drops him, and it was a rough night for Mr. Ortega, man. I don't know if you saw on TikTok the guy in the stands who yelled, "Tracy Cortez doesn't want you anymore," and he stormed at the guy in the sphere, but yeah, man, rough night for Ortega. Great night for Lopez. Like you said, could be a star in the making. I think he's going to fight somebody. I hope he fights someone like in that elite category next. I think he's earned it. But the UFC does like this guy a lot, so I could see them kind of trying to play the card of giving him these more favorable matchups until they can't. So I'm interested to see who. I saw someone say him versus Volkanovski next. I would love that. So
yeah, bro, I another thing with this guy, a reason why I believe because he is like, not to say a star, but he is becoming a fan favorite. That's the word I'm looking for, especially with these MMA fans. Dude, go look at every fight, every card that this guy's fought on. There's a reason why his name's growing. He doesn't fight in the Apex. He fought last November rather, on the MSG card. Massive, massive, massive spot. He comes around. He fights UFC 300 MSG or UFC 300. Again, huge card. What's the next biggest card? A couple months later, supposed to be the return of Conor McGregor. They bring in him and Ortega to beef up the card. International Fight Week, Las Vegas, huge card. Then he fights on UFC Noche. Again, these are all huge cards with a ton of eyes on them. I think that's kind of elevating him as well. Dude, I do not know what Brian Ortega is made of. I know he's rebirthed. He cracked his beak and, feathers all over the octagon. He got fucking splattered, dude. Another reason why people love Diego Lopes. He nearly gets charged with manslaughter in the first round. He kind of coasts in the second round. The reason why I asked what made you say Ortega's washed, I thought Ortega's striking looked pretty good for him. I might be crazy. He was getting his jab off.
Well,
not a striker.
I think Lopes. I think Lopes is very flawed on the feet. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think a guy that's why I'm so excited to see Lopes fight like an elite level guy like a Volkanovski or someone like that.
He's a wild boy, bro. He fucking also.
Hey, and he's like I said, in that division, bro, with his finishing, like I told you when we were breaking down the fight, I was like, yo, he's live against anybody in the division because he don't give a fuck. He's reckless.
Give a fuck.
He'll throw, like, he's got submissions. He's a
crazy.
And I agree with you. I think the UFC is pushing him hard. Like, they want this guy to be, you know what I mean? I think, like, dude, the matchmaker's job is to not only set up good matchups, but, bro, people don't talk about this, but, dude, those guys who are the matchmakers, they know a lot of what's going on in people's lives and who's, like, you know what I mean, who's doing well. And I'm not saying that they set Brian Ortega up. I'm just saying they set these matchups up knowing, like, they're trying to put their best foot forward for a guy that they want, and rightfully so. They want Lopes to be a star. And I agree with them, and I would have done the same thing with the matchup. He was the number 12 guy or 13 guy in the fighting the number 3 guy for a reason. You know what I mean? Like they felt like this was a good matchup for him.
Yeah, and I think definitely, like I said, these last couple months have played a big role. So after getting another first round knockout at UFC 300, again I imagine that was one of the most watched cards the last couple years. They threw him in there when McGregor was no longer fighting, right? So, like, obviously, they think this guy has some sort of following, and Ortega certainly does, right? So, like, they threw him in there. Obviously, they want to push him. And then, he accepts the whole, debacle with Ortega at UFC 303, and he still comes out there and fights. Like, I don't think many guys would have accepted the fight versus Ige on a couple hours notice, right? Like, we give all the credit to Ige, and rightfully so. What a badass. But, like, how many guys are going to risk fighting him? Like, it wasn't like he was off the couch. Like, again, he might have been technically off the couch, but, like, he had a fight in like 2 weeks. He was ready to go. And he's no slouch, right? He's been in the rankings forever. He's been a fringe top 10 guy for a very long time. So, I think after that fight, they were kind of like, all right, we'll push you here a little bit. What do you want? Do you want him versus Volk?
Dude, I would love that fight. Love it, dude.
I don't see. So Volk, I saw him put out a video. I don't know if he was just breaking down the fights, but he said, obviously the title is next. Maybe they'll do an interim belt versus Diego Lopes. I don't know in what world we need a featherweight interim belt. We literally have a fight already announced. So I'm not sure why we would need that. I'm a big fan of Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's one of the best MMA fighters I've ever seen. Don't want him fighting for a title right now. Don't want it. I love the guy. If he does, it's like, you can't really say that he doesn't deserve it. The guy's got knocked out back-to-back fights. He's lost 3 out of 4. He got pretty brutally knocked out by Ilia Topuria, the man with the belt. If Max Holloway wins,
viciously knocked out. Back-to-back fights, viciously knocked out.
Badly, right? And it's not like those were like, an accumulation of shots that build up. It wasn't a TKO. He got put out in the first round against what's his name? Islam, and then in the second against Volk. Eyes rolling back in the head. So if Max wins, I think all hell breaks loose, and I don't really know what they're going to do at featherweight.
There's no way they make Max versus Volkanovski again. No way.
If you're Volk, you're going to push for that. I mean, if you're Volk and if you're Max still wants to run it back. I think they would do that, dude.
You know what? They probably will. People are going to buy it. People will watch it. Like,
okay, but so that fight is We're a little over a month away. Ilya comes out, sparks Max. What do they do?
Don't worry about it because Max Holloway ain't getting by the machine that is Ilya Taporia. I'll just go on record here right now.
So what do they
Ilya
do?
Taporia will finish Max Holloway. Mark my words.
October 26th, maybe, whenever that fight is. Ilya comes out, he sparks out Max. What's next for him?
Whatever he wants, dude. He's.
Well, what do you think he wants?
If Diego Lopez gets another win, he'll flatline Diego Lopez. So he will knock out Diego Lopez in the first round, guaranteed. So if Lopez gets a win, I'm telling you, I think the UFC is going to try to get Volk to take a fight, like a non-title fight, in my opinion. Whether it's, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen here. Like, I think I think Conor does have an effect on this because whether we think he fights or not, Dana's like pretty adamant that he's fighting early. Like he said on the podcast that he's fighting early 2025. And who is it? Does he fight Poirier Gaethje? Does that take away from the fact of a Volkanovski Gaethje, a Volkan? You know what I'm saying? I'm throwing things out there. I don't know, but
I 100% agree with you. Every guy in the UFC, especially if you're in that, I mean, anywhere from 45 to 70, you want the McGregor fight if you have any sort of name. Or if you're Joaquin Buckley, I guess maybe you want it as well. There's a very different thing between fighting for a title and being in the red panty night Conor McGregor sweepstakes. It seems Volk, kind of has one foot in each. Like he still wants to fight for a belt. He made it clear that he would fight like a fun fight, like a Gaethje, an Oliveira, a Poirier, before fighting for the belt, which would be utter nonsense. I don't know. He's said that the UFC says that he'll fight for a belt in his next fight. I think that's insane. But what else? Any other? I mean, Ribovics versus Zellhuber, one of the best rounds of all time. Bringing you back to Poirier Hooker round number 2. Holy smokes, dude. That was an awesome, awesome fight. That was a sick round. I low-key thought a little bit of a robbery. I thought Zellhuber was up 2-0 going into the third round, but that round was just so insane that I don't think anyone really cared. That was one of the best rounds I've ever seen, dude. UFC Noche, hell of an event. We have a new champion, a couple new champions, Bum 1 and Bum 2, Snooze Fest. Who gives a shit?
Rob Dvalishvili.
I was praying on an incorrect pronunciation, but nicely done. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. More stuff later this week.